Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. My name's Tracy, and as you can see I've made a little swatch, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to make the border of my chunky mile a minute blanket. It's only a small swatch so that I can go round with you because my blanket is quite a way off being finished, so I didn't want to wait any longer showing you how I'm going to do a border on it. And so also, a little confession, I managed to leave my 8mm crochet hook at home, so I'm using a 7. So I'll just try to crochet that little bit looser around the outside because I was working on the swatch yesterday at my house and I've left it at home. So I've got another skein of the outside contrasting yarn it's making the outside of the strips, and I've got a bit of this. Well, I've got quite a lot of this actually, but that should be enough just for this border. So I'm just going to pause the video for a second because I've forgotten my essential piece of equipment, which I keep my yarn in on the floor, and that's the laundry basket. So bear with me 1 second. That's better. I do have a nice fancy yarn bag, which is a project bag, but for some reason I really like using the laundry basket, which keeps the wool on the floor, the yarn on the floor, without it zooming all over the floor and getting dirty. So, you know, just what you're used to, isn't it? I guess it's kind of different, but yeah, you'll need a pair of scissors, and a darning needle, which is inside my case. Just getting rid of a hair off my project. I don't know, I seem to sort of crochet more hair in my projects than anything else about yarn. So we're going to join it. Okay, it doesn't really matter if I join it this side. I just want to join it at a separate place to where there's already a tail to work over. So I do have this amount left over from working yesterday, but I'm going to start a new ball because it may not be enough, and I don't want to make it another join because that would just get confusing. So, oh look, I found my crochet hook. I stuck it in the yarn ball. That's good. So I shall be using the correct size. I can remember doing it now, but I couldn't remember doing it before. I'll put it down to the fact that I'm not very well. I've got an ill brain. So just pulling out some yarn. And so with the border, it's already got a nice chunky border around it anyway that comes around each strip. So I'm going to join it here. This is our peak end. So we've got this whole section. So I'm going to join it round about there and right at the beginning of that peak. I think that would be a nice place to do a little join. And so I'm just going to chain 1. Now, I'm not one for massive ornate borders, so I like to keep mine quite simple. So I'm just going to go all the way around with a row of double crochet in the UK, which is a single crochet for those in the US. And I believe that's the only terminology there is, US and UK. So I'm just going to go all the way around very simply. Then when I get to the peak, which I'm at now, I'm going to do 3 in there. I'm going slowly because I've still got a slightly painful wrist. I hurt it. For those of you who don't know, I woke up with it, so I think I just squashed it in the night somehow and hurt the tendons. So I'm going a bit slower and trying to be a bit easier on it. So I pulled that aside so I could get into the first one and just go into each one down this side. Try not to make them too tight so that they've got as much give. Don't start to bunch. Now this is where we get to the peak, and if you've made a chevron blanket, you'll know that the way we get through this, that's the peak, this is the trough. Where we get through this little V is by doing 2 stitches together twice. So I'm going to double crochet or single crochet these 2 together. So I'm going to go in, pull up a loop, and then go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and I'm yarning over and going through 2. And then I'm going to do exactly the same with these. So I'm going to go in, pull up a loop, go into the next one, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. So it keeps that nice tight V. Just pull out some more yarn because it is a bit of a, does use quite a bit, this blanket. And being as though it's chunky, it doesn't, although you pull out a lot, it's not really as much as it would normally be. So then we're just going to go in each one again and do 1 until we get to the peak. And once we get there again, we're going to do 3. Just to turn that little peak corner. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing as we did in this one, all the way down to the little trough part, peaks and troughs. There we are. So you want to stop when you get to 2 stitches away, just as I did before. So these 2 are going to be done together. And then these 2, the first one there and the second one, together. And that's what happens. It just makes that little V nice and tidy. And then we're going to go all the way again to the top of our peak. And I'm going to go all the way around this blanket, or this little swatch. So I'll be going all the way around my blanket, which is a little way off of being done. We'll pull that aside so I can get into the first one. Otherwise it starts to pull if you don't get the right amount of stitches. It might pull over a little bit. Now when I get along this side, we turn the corner again now when we get to this one here. So instead of doing 3, I'm just going to do 2, and that should be enough because it's not a definite corner, it's a slant. Now I'm going to work over this tail and just go in every stitch all the way along the side. So that one was a join, and they're always a little bit harder to see where the actual stitch is. I'm going to zoom in, hopefully it won't deviate off the camera, which can sometimes happen when it's zoomed too much. So just go in each one all the way along the side until we get to our other end, which are again the same as before with the peaks and the troughs. There's probably a better term for it, but I can't remember it at this moment. I'll just snip off those loose ends later. So if I pull that out and I'll just show you, at the moment this is what we've got. I'll zoom back out again. And it's just tidying it up nicely and keeping this sort of chevron type edging. And we excuse me, it's just going along each one now all the way around. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to meet up with you again when I get back to the start, because if you need to see this part again you can just rewind it to this part. But it's basically you stop, you do 3 in your corner, sort of your turning point here, and then you stop when you've got 2 stitches remaining, do 2 together, 2 together, all the way up, 3, all the way down, 2 together, 2 together, and I'll meet you back at the start once you've done all that. Okay, so I'm all the way back to the start and there's my first stitch. So I've got one more there, and just as I did with the turning places, I'm doing that extra one in there, and then I'm just going to join with a slip stitch into that stitch there to complete that round. Now I'm going to end off this colour usual way. Do a chain, pull it down, and pull it through. Cinch it down. Now that is a fairly nice little border. That's around the wrong way. So, no it's not, it was the right way the first time. So you can, obviously it does need sort of like pulling into shape, it's a chunky blanket. So if you wanted to leave it like that, you could, but I'm going to go another round in this colour because I do like the way that finishes off a blanket. I quite often do that. I'll either take a colour or a multiple colour of all the colours that are in the blanket and just do an edging. You might have seen that on my Rainbow Rocks baby blanket, where I used a multicoloured yarn which had more or less all of the colours in the blanket just to go all the way around the outside. And sometimes I think that looks really effective, and as these colours are in the blanket, this is the exact yarn, it will look nice. So I'm just going to join that yarn in 1 second, and just bear with me because I need to blow my nose. Sorry about that. I have to do that more often than I'd like. So I'm going to get on the right side of the blanket, which is this side. Now, as you know, I don't like joining too many ends at one time, so I'm going to join it here. So this time I'm going to join it at the opposite end of the peak. So here, go through both of the loops and just join your yarn however you like. So I'm going to just do one chain with both ends, that's the working yarn and the tail, and then I'm going to do a single crochet in each stitch around. Now the first one has 3, so don't worry about that, but it doesn't matter. I did kind of do a little experiment with the half treble, so that's half double in the US, and I'll show you this is what they look like. So if you wanted to do this, then by all means you can. I'll just show you what they look like. Obviously you may have different yarn. I know some people have managed to get this yarn, but it gives you a slightly larger, more raised border, but I quite like it just doing it in the single crochet in US, double crochet in the UK, which is what we've been doing. So it's insert and pull through both. Well, there's obviously 3 for my first one, but then just go in and do 1 stitch all the way around. And when we get back to this point, remember you need another stitch in there because it's that slight bend, just as we did in the previous round. Don't need 3 because it's not an absolute corner, but it is just a little bend. But I think this looks quite effective when you've got these colours just from the inside drawn out to the outer border. I really like the way it looks. Sometimes if it's a thinner yarn, I might do it with a single row like this and then a crab stitch row going the opposite way, because it will give that little kind of roll effect. And I've even done a half treble, half double in a crab stitch. That looks quite nice. But obviously these real chunky super, because I think this is called chunky, but to me it's a super chunky, so I would say that's a super bulky in the US because it's very, very chunky. It's not like some of the chunkies I've worked with. It's much more of a chunky, if you know what I mean. Just going to get a quick drink. Must admit, I do feel a little bit better today. Couldn't speak this morning. It's getting a little bit better throughout the day. So now I'm at that edge where I'm going up this is my first peak, so I'm going to do 2 in this next one, and now I'm going to work over, if I can get it in, going to work over that yarn. So I'm going to do 2 in there just to keep that line, and then 1 as we go up the peak, I need to blow my nose again. Goodness gracious. Horrible. Just going to pause for a second. Sorry about that. I'm back again. So I'm almost back at the top. And I'm going to do 3 in the middle of those 3 there. So it's this stitch here. There's 1, there's 2, there's... or is it that one? Yeah. So I'm just making sure. So 1 in this one. Oh, it's very tight because there's 3 in there. And then 3 in the middle one. Just to turn that corner. And then 1 until we get down to the bottom of our little valley, trough, whatever you want to call it. So now I'm at the bottom 2 stitches, and as it's the final row, if you want to see what it looks like, just going in each one, or maybe just doing 1 joining pulled together there, that's fine, because it's the final round. And I'm just going to cut that off in a moment, that end, get rid of it out the back, and go all the way up the side of this peak. Now I'll pull it aside for a second and I'll have a look. That looks fine to me, that looks good. So I'll leave it like that. Don't know actually. I think it looks fine. I'll practice on this one, and if it looks better the other way, I'll go back. So, and in the top, again. So that's the middle one. Looks middle. It's quite tight. And then all the way down the other side. And then we'll see if it looks better doing it the previous, more traditional way. We'll compare the 2. And we'll settle on one way. I do. So here we are. I think it looks better that way with the border, and it does like that. So we'll go back and we'll follow suit. It just looks a little bit neater on the last round. I thought it would. So 1 in there, and then 1 and 1. Pull them together and back up the other side. Until we get to the top. And we're just going to do that all the way around. And don't forget, when you get to this section here, you just do 2 in that stitch there to keep that curve, and on each one of those, and 3 in the top. Just pull 1 together, like going into this 1 stitch and that 1 stitch, to pull them together as you go around. So I'm going to go all the way around the blanket, and I will meet up with you when we get back to the other side. Okay, so I've made it all the way round. Do my 1 in there, and then my last one in that same stitch, and I'm just going to slip stitch by going into both. It's very bulky, this yarn, to do that with. Cut this off. Now that is what I'm proposing that I do with my blanket, and I quite like the way it looks. Obviously it's kind of needs teasing into a little bit of space, shape rather, and it is just a swatch. Obviously the blanket will pull out an awful lot better than my little swatch is, but that's kind of it. Now if you wanted to go around one more time with the black, but bearing in mind you will only see a little bit of the colour because this top part will be hidden. so it will hide it quite a bit. But I like it the way it is, so that's how I'm going to do my border. I think it looks nice just bringing out the colours. So thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell, and you'll be informed when there are new videos. And I now need to really just crack on and finish this blanket. I think I might wait until my hand is just a little bit easier before I do it. It's quite heavy. So thanks for watching, and until next time, bye for now.